Word of Django Wexler has been good. He's one of the fantasy darlings of some booktube and online fantasy communities that I follow. It was only a matter of time before I got to reading him, when I saw the quirky, colourful cover of How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. I knew the time had finally come. The verdict? I had a good time! But I wish this novel didn't so eagerly stumble onto easy-to-avoid pitfalls. Wexler's latest novel has a lot of heart, a good bit of action, and a surprising amount of geniality as far as characters are concerned. Davy is a decent sort, if self-centered, to a fault. Of course, that's what you'll get when the universe revolves around you, resetting to a set point in time whenever you goof up and die horribly. As Davy herself notes, quote, "Try to maintain appropriate humility all you want. It's hard to believe the world doesn't revolve around you when it rewinds the tape every time you fall on your head." Close quotes. 1,000 years of failure have made of this earth-born woman a cynical, jaundiced human being who no longer sees anyone else as quite real, not all of the time. She grows attached to those who are closest to her, but hundreds of lifetimes that have resulted in her death and hers have made Davy believe that any course of action will ultimately end with her back where she began, clawing her way out of a magical spring, listening to an old wizard spout nonsense about destiny and the end of the world. This is good, and the novel is at its best when Wexler concentrates on the costs of Davy's broken perception. It is not all good, however. There are moments which made me distinctly aware I was reading a female character written by a man, much in the same way as when I was reading Brandon Sanderson's otherwise imaginative young adult series Skyward. As far as her bisexuality goes, Davy is portrayed stereotypically, the way a horny teenage boy, no less, might imagine a bisexual woman would be. She rates herself on 1 to 10 on the hotness scale, and she's altogether a horn dog, which, while a choice I can get the logic behind, ultimately ran wrong in execution. It distracts from the story world, and when a novel like this is very much intent on selling you on that story world, it just doesn't quite click the way you want it to. And the references, they don't exactly make sense. Davy states at one point that she barely remembers anything from the world she comes from, but her knowledge of pop culture is equal to that of the average nerd. The average contemporary nerd, no less. Obviously, Wexler means that it's Davy's personal life that she has forgotten, I think, I'm guessing. But forgetting the private details of your life as opposed to useless trivia, snarky references, and snappy comebacks no one else gets is a simplification that frustrates me. The fact that I have to make excuses, justifications for the writing choice frustrates me more. All of Davy's dark underlings barely question these various references. Here, Wexler again offers a simple explanation. Oh, that Dark Lord. She sure is kooky. And I'm again left unconvinced with this explanation. Why, after 1,000 years, has Davy not developed enough colloquialisms for the locals? It can't be just because she's dealing with wilders instead of humans. Is it because those references would be less funny for the reader? I'm not convinced. Do a good enough job with the writing, and snarky footnotes based entirely in the story world would not only be a whole lot funnier than some of these references to our own world, they would also avoid aging the book. Why is this the way it is? This novel is obviously engaging in a fad, the isekai subgenre. It benefits from it insofar as Wexler can mine for popular cultural references in both the main text and across the endless array of footnotes. More than a few of these refer to classics of sci-fi and fantasy, from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars. Still more references have a distinctly contemporary edge, recalling memes and the career of director Michael Bay, as well as many a teenage boy's snarky sexual comments. Some hit the mark, some didn't. If you like 2010's Deadpool-ish humor, you might well find these jokes hilarious. If you're into drier, less contemporary American humor, you might be mixed on the whole thing. Wexler has thrown in everything but the kitchen sink. Funnily enough, anime at last is beginning to move away from isekai as a dominant engine of fantasy storytelling. While I enjoyed How to Become the Dark Lord, I do hope it's an industry's passing flirtation with the subgenre rather than a sign of books to come. Lit RPG, science fiction and fantasy literature is exhausting enough. I've been a rather negative Nancy so far, haven't I? Well, you know how these things are. You get started with a few pet peeves and before you know it, you're airing your grievances for all the world to see and you couldn't stop it if you tried. Yet stop, I shall. So what's good about the novel? The plotting proceeds at excellent pace. Long chapters cover a great deal of situations that Davi has to overcome, and she often finds ways to finesse her way out of deadly challenges rather than use brute force. That is a good part of what makes Wexler's novel fun. Davi has the distinct air of an underdog about her, despite or because of her experiences of failure over hundreds of lifetimes. What some might dislike, I actually enjoyed. Wexler's novel had a distinct D&D adventure vibe to it, with various attractive set pieces and memorable side characters. Sav, the young orc leader who becomes Davi's closest friend, confident in general, is a standout, as is the stone giant Droff. The variety of humanoid creatures certainly recalls the D&D multiverse-style list of species you might get from a particularly benevolent dungeon master. There are betrayals, unexpected friendships, and an unexpected amount of heart as the twists and turns keep playing out. Some unnecessary drama too, the kind that you'll see coming a mile away. And so will Davi, in her defense. Bear with it. The rest makes it worth it. If all that I said before isn't enough to demotivate you. The world building is similarly fun, full of tropes, rivers of lava, environmental variety comparable to that of World of Warcraft's world zones. The text is explicit about this, and a fun 2-in-1 arcane system which sees humans and wildies use the magical substance Taomite, or Tormite, in distinct ways. While humans wield this crystallized arcane power to cast magical spells, wildies swallow it and see it become a part of their bodies. They also use it during reproduction, which ties them to their world's natural cycles much more closely than it does humans, who exist outside such natural cycles. It's one of the more original reasons for a conflict between humans and non-humans I've come across in recent times. This idea that the wilders see the humans as a plague or a blight recalls to me a certain Matrix monologue. If you've seen the film, you'll know the one. I wonder if the author had that at the back of his mind when he cooked this particular thread of world building up. Django Wexler's novel is another one of those books that evil base, promising us a Dark Lord but never quite managing to deliver. Dark Lord Davi is, as I said early on, a decent sort. With an ending that promises to rack up the villainy, what might Davi do to go against type further than before? I'm not sure, but I can tell you for a fact that I will be looking forward to Book 2, Everyone Wants to Rule the World But Me, which will wrap up this charming, if flawed, duology, as well as Davi's story. Please, for the sake of everything, no sequel baiting. I don't know that I can bear it. If you enjoyed this video, which I expect might be the case for those of you who enjoy, kind of meaner, well, not meaner, but more negative, definitely more negative reviews. I usually do more positive reviews because I tend to only read literature that I really enjoy. Sometimes, as in this case, I will really enjoy something even as I recognize that it has some deep flaws which take away from the overall enjoyment. Once you start thinking about a book, if you end up getting more and more of these various reasons as to why it's not a great book, that usually tells you something. That's often the point where I will drop a series, but because this is a duology and because I did end up enjoying it more than not enjoying it at the end, I hope that its weaker aspects can be addressed, minimized in the second book. If not, I'll still probably enjoy it. You know, that completionist flair. But if you did enjoy this video, please smash that like button. Share this with your friends, with your grandma, with your enemies. And, of course, let me know what are your favorite villains and villain-centered bits of media. I would be all too happy to hear your takes. Or read them, rather. One favorite villainous arc, sort of, for me is in Wild Bow's web serial Worm. I think that's probably the most interesting superhero to supervillain to superhero, and zigzagging between the two kind of revolutions in the medium of super heroic tales. It's great. I'm probably not going to talk about it on the YouTube channel, unless someone really wants me to. And then I don't know how I'm going to talk about it, because it is enormous. Until next week, I will be back with more fantasy. Should be, anyway. Next Wednesday, there's sci-fi videos. On Mondays, there are miscellaneous videos about books and literature, lists, reviews of literary and classic novels on Fridays. I'll see you whenever you want me to see you. But don't show yourself unless you're ready for it. Don't know what that means. I'm Philip Magnus, you're not. I'll see you next time. Bye!